policy?
Well, that's your simplistic, racialized way of looking at it, because
it's yours
that is
about
what you're
Trump.
doing on this show.
It's yours about Trump.
Of course it is. No,
But
mine is
let's
about
move on.
fascism.
I want to move on.
Donald Trump is acting
I don't
like
want to spend the whole time
I'll give
talking
you a
about
black
this.
person that behaves the way he does, trying to take people's citizenship away, denaturalizing. That's Idi Amin behavior. There's a black fascist that you can compare him to.
Okay, let's move on to, I want to just play a clip of when you lost your job at MSNBC. Let's watch this.
My show had value, and that, I'm sorry, that that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And whether it's talking about any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being.
Piers Morgan did not book Joy Reid for an interview. He booked her for an ambush and came prepared with 3 weapons: an old blog post from 2007, her ratings decline, and Donald Trump's insults read out loud like they were supposed to hurt her. He burned through all 3 in under 20 minutes, and Joy Reid sat there completely calm, completely sharp, and named every single move he was making while he was still making it. That is what you are about to watch. Let's get into this, and I'll give you my full thoughts on the other side.
Percent of whom CBS has determined had no criminal record
whatsoever.
whatsoever.
Why are you changing the subject from Obama's deportation policy?
I'm telling you, the 3 things that are shocking are not deportations themselves. It's deporting people, number one, to third-party countries like the Sudan, where they have no ties whatsoever, simply for the cruelty of doing it, essentially paying third-party countries.
But I asked you about your response to Obama. Obama deported more people than any president in American history.
If someone receives... Piers, my family are immigrants. If there's a deportation process, at the end of that adjudication, you are deemed to be deportable and need to be deported.
But you're missing my point, Joy. Boy, I'm trying to politely ask you, do you condemn...
Is different from what we're seeing now.
But here's my point. In the interest of fairness, do you condemn Barack Obama's deportation policy, given that he deported more people... Let me finish. More people than any American president in history in his 8 years.
What an absolutely disingenuous argument, Piers. Because what people are yes. No, I'm gonna explain it if you'll allow me.
You didn't even know how many he deported.
Because I just said that, first of all, I think it was a moral compromise that I disagree with vehemently.
A moral
that Barack
compromise.
Obama made to try to lure Republicans who were never going to really come to the table for immigration reform. I disagree with what he did. But if there's a process for deportation, that's one thing.
Okay.
If you are rendering people with no process, if you are rendering them to third parties, and if you are kidnapping them off the streets, as if this is 1930s Germany or South Africa in the 1980s, that is what I find objectionable, and I find fundamentally fascist, and will stand by that every day. What Donald Trump is doing is a moral horror.
I hear you.
And if you can't see that, I don't know what to tell you.
I hear you. All I'll tell you is that Obama deported a hell of a lot more people
but that
than
isn't
Trump,
the issue. The issue
and most
is,
of them were brown.
And
last time I checked, Barack Obama isn't white. So it may not be a race thing.
And what does that have to do with Barack Obama being black?
Me.
Now you're the one obsessed with race. You want to make this a racial argument. The argument is that the Obama administration,
you made it a racial
the Biden
argument.
Administration, because Donald Trump fixates
you said Trump
black people,
is deporting people based on their skin color.
Well, it is what he does. He plays
so
racial
did
politics
Obama.
as a matter of course.
Obama did it too, only worse.
It's what his politics were all about. His politics are about removing as many non-white people clearly from the country as they can, 3,000 a day.
And that's what Obama's policy was too.
Apparently the policy here.
That's what Obama's policy was too.
No, it was not. And there was no rendering of people. There was a process for deportation. And you know that it's materially different.
As we sit here, Obama deported more people pro rata per year than Trump has ever done.
How many did he render to a third party? How many did he render to a third party? Because what he's also doing is
outraged by Trump, but you're not outraged by Obama.
I'm absolutely outraged by fascism and by snatching people
off the streets. But Obama wasn't a fascist because
no process.
He's not.
Absolutely, I'm outraged
because Obama's got brown skin, he's not a fascist. Is that your policy?
Well, that's your simplistic, racialized way of looking at it. Because
it's yours about
you're
Trump.
doing on this show.
It's yours about Trump.
Of course it is. No, mine is about fascism.
I want to move on
because I don't want to spend the whole time talking about this. Person that behaves the way he does. trying to take people's citizenship away, denaturalizing. That's Idi Amin behavior. There's a black fascist that you can compare him to.
Let's move on to, I want to just play a clip of when you lost your job at MSNBC. Let's watch this.
My show had value, and that, I'm sorry, that that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And whether it's talking about any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed. And I am not sorry that I stood up for those things, because those things are of God. And you know, I'm a church girl too, and those are the things that I was taught were of God. And so I'm not sorry. I'm just proud of my show.
Now, look, you're perfectly entitled to be proud of your show. Many people enjoyed your show for many years. You know, a lot of people at NBC were briefing that the reason was declining ratings post the election, a 47% decrease in your election, in ratings from pre-election. But you told Mark Lamont Hill on his show this.
After I said on my show that the reason Americans could relate to Ukrainians in a way that they didn't relate to Palestinians, that Ukrainians are white. And so watching white people get their schools bombed was, you know, hit different. That hit our ratings. I mean, it definitely, we could see the loss of white viewers from that moment that I said that. So they were like, we don't like the name calling. And also I'm a black woman. So, I mean, I'm sure it makes him angrier, you know, when I say things. Maybe because I am a global South person myself, you know, I mean, as a black person, we have a different empathy toward other global South people when they are suffering. And so we're going to come at that story from a different angle and in a different way and with different kinds of empathies. And I think that's not always received very well in the news business.
Now, Joy, I mean, look, let's be honest. I don't think you were fired after all those years because of your skin color or because you're a black woman. I think you were fired because your show just got increasingly unpopular. It happens all the time in TV. That's why you got let go. Why play the race card?
First of all, I love the fact that your play the race card is your version of the race card. You literally are so fixated on trying to racialize conversations with me, Piers, that I find it actually quite charming.
You racialize more conversations in your tenure at MSNBC than any host in history.
All right, Mark. All right, Piers. And the bottom line is you take an entire conversation that I had with Mark Lamont Hill and pick the bits that you can racialize because this is your shtick. And I get that this is your shtick.
You racialize everything, Joy. Come on.
I get it. And I understand this is your shtick, Piers. And listen, game recognizes game. I get this is your game.
It's not my shtick.
And the bottom line,
it was your shtick.
It is your shtick. And everyone knows that it is. Piers, we
people got bored with it.
And it is so interesting to me that you yourself, as a white European, find that when people of color talk about race, that you believe is racializing conversations. But when people like you fixate on, well, Barack Obama was a black president, why don't you object to that? That is racializing a conversation about the former president of the United States. But you can't put your, and I'm sure you find that charming and funny.
I find it hilarious because you're the one. You're the one who said Donald Trump.
You and your friend Donald Trump.
You said Donald Trump is a white fascist.
Are so he is a well. I agree with Mark
when Obama did the same thing.
Last time I checked, is
I'm not allowed to mention his skin color.
I agree with his former chief of staff, who last I checked was not black and said he's fascist. And Mark Milley said he's fascist to the core. Okay. So I happen to agree, and I know this is what it's important to you, with two very white gentlemen about Donald Trump's fascist tendencies. Okay. If that makes you sad and uncomfortable, I can't help you, Piers.
No, yes, it made me sad and uncomfortable. I think it makes you a little bit of a hypocrite, but that's different. Now, President Trump reacted to your departure by saying, low-life chairman of Comcast, Brian Roberts, the owner of ratings-challenged NBC and MSNBC, has finally gotten the nerve up to fire one of the least talented people in television, the mentally obnoxious racist Joy Reid, based on her ratings, which were virtually non-existent, should have been canned long ago, along with everyone else who works there. What's your response to that? Many of us carry around bulky, worn-out wallets that are uncomfortable and full of junk. The big question is why. Ridge wallets can hold 12 cards plus cash with zero bulk. They're made from premium materials like aluminum, titanium and carbon fiber. And they're built with RFID blocking technology to defend your cards against digital theft. Ridge offers a lifetime warranty, so this might be the last wallet you ever need. The same lifetime guarantee applies to their key cases, suitcases and rings. All of them come with free shipping and a 99-day trial. For a limited time, get 10% off at Ridge by using code PIERS, P-I-E-R-S, at checkout. Just head to ridge.com and use code PIERS. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them I sent you.
If you are, I mean, it's fascinating to me that you think it's important that I care what Donald Trump says about me. It's a badge of honor. If he dislikes me, then I think I'm doing something right. I have zero respect for Donald Trump, and therefore, if he feels the same way about me, then the feelings are quite mutual, and I'm very, very proud of that and happy with it.
Okay, I want to play a clip. This is you talking about, you attacking parents. You spoke out about their concerns about gay and paedophilia pornography books being placed in school libraries.
The question I'm asking is, what is the expertise that you have and other Moms for Liberty advocates have to decide that a book, an award-winning book like All Boys Aren't Blue, isn't appropriate for students to read? What is your expertise?
What a tragic story of a young man who's anally raped by his adult family member. So you have incest, rape, pedophilia. Joy, you said you'd let me answer, so I'm going to answer
Please
for you. In what context is a strap-on dildo acceptable for public school? I mean, that's my question to you. Tell me what the context around the strap-on dildo or the rape of a minor child by a teacher.
Hold on a second.
No, wait, we're talking about public school.
One moment.
All right.
Now, there's also a second clip. This is you talking about Republicans exploiting concerns by minors who identify as transgender. And you said this was an old-age tradition which Nazi Germany did. Let's take a look.
In fact, there are more kids who have been exposed to gun violence, estimated at 3 million, than there are transgender Americans of all ages in total. Targeting trans people isn't new. It is an age-old tradition, which Nazi Germany did with brutally violent ends in the 1930s.
Now, the confusing part of all this, Joy, is what you really think about the LGBTQ plus, whatever it now is, community. Right, because as you know, when you started commentating about this, appearing to be a big ally, a lot of stuff emerged which came from posts that you had purportedly put up in a blog between 2007 and 2009, one of which said, most straight people cringe at the sight of two men kissing. Another said, I don't want to watch the two male characters in Brokeback Mountain. You were talking about having sex. Does that make me homophobic? Probably. You referred to the then Florida governor as Miss Charlie and featured the tag gay politicians. Now, you said at the time when all this emerged, I genuinely don't believe I wrote those hateful things because they're completely alien to me. I hired cybersecurity experts to see if somebody manipulated my words on my former blog. And the reality is they've not been able to prove it. Now you're not at MSNBC. Now you're on your own, doing your own thing, and you don't have to worry about repercussions and stuff. Are you prepared to finally come clean and just admit that was your blog and you did say those things?
You know, Piers, I might have known that you would use this opportunity and interview and that this was your purpose, right? This is your purpose. And that's fine. This is your show and you can do whatever you like. You know, I could sit here and go on and fight with you about your strange, weird obsession with Meghan Markle, but I won't do that because that would be rude. But what I will say is,
if you want to.
We can do that as well.
Sure.
But the point being that I was very open with my employer at the time about what happened with that old site, which I stopped writing in, before I even came back into the NBC family. And what I have not really talked about publicly, but what I can tell you is that I had a very legitimate reason for being concerned about it because I was also on the radio at that time. And the things that I was literally talking about on the radio were quite the opposite of the things that were in that site. That is the reason that we began investigating what was going on with that site. And there was also someone who I do not know, who I still do not know, who had login access to my site for years that we did not even discover because I hadn't looked at the site for years. I don't know who that is. I don't know why they had access to the site. But had I not been open about that, I would have been definitely fired, or you know, there would have been some repercussions. I was open with my company about that. I've been very open. Everyone who knows me knows.
Let's start with what Piers Morgan actually did in that interview, because it needs to be named clearly. He spent the entire segment racializing the conversation, bringing up Obama, deploying the old blog, framing Joy Reid's entire departure from MSNBC through the lens of race and ratings. And then the moment she responded to any of it, he called her the one who was playing the race card and obsessed with race. That move has a name. It is called making someone defend themselves against the exact thing you are doing to them. It works on people who have never seen it before. Joy Reid has seen it before. She named it on camera while he was still running the play, and that is what broke the format. The play, The Race Card Accusation, is one of the most effective shutdown buttons in media. The moment a black woman connects her lived experience to a political reality, the button gets pressed. Suddenly, she is the one making it about race, not the network that made decisions about her show, not the host who came in with a folder of old blog posts, her for noticing. And Joy Reid pointed out the exact contradiction. Piers had no problem mentioning Barack Obama's skin color as relevant context, but when she discussed race as a factor in her own professional experience, suddenly that was racializing the conversation. She said it directly and with complete calm. You cannot apply that standard in one direction and pretend you are being neutral. The ratings argument deserves the honest treatment Joy Reid gave it. Yes, her show's numbers dropped. That is real, and she did not deny it. But she also pointed out that other MSNBC shows dropped just as hard in the same period. Some dropped harder. Piers moved past that immediately because the specific numbers were never really the point. The point was the invitation. The clip package was already assembled. The old blog from 2007 was already queued up. The structure of the interview was built to produce a specific outcome, and the ratings were just the entry point. The blog question at the end is where Piers showed exactly what this was really about. He pulled out posts from 17 to 19 years ago and asked Joy Reid to come clean now that she is no longer at MSNBC and has nothing to lose. She had already addressed this publicly, and at the time, she told her employer she hired cybersecurity experts. The investigation was inconclusive, and Piers framed the lack of definitive proof as guilt rather than as the absence of evidence. That is not journalism. That is a verdict in search of a confession. And Joy Reid's response to being read, Donald Trump's insult about her on international television, was genuinely one of the best moments in the clip. She said if Donald Trump dislikes her, she thinks she is doing something right. That if he has no respect for her, the feeling is entirely mutual, and she is proud of that. That is not bravado. That is someone who has thought carefully about whose approval actually matters and made a deliberate decision about whose opinion counts as a badge of honor versus a badge of shame. Now let's zoom out, because this is not just about one interview on one show. As of 2025, 50 million Americans have limited or no access to local news. 136 local newsrooms closed in a single year, more than 2 every week. The communities losing those newsrooms are losing more than just news coverage. They are losing the infrastructure of local accountability. They cannot find out what their city council voted on. They cannot track who got the contract or why the school board made that decision. A community without local journalism is a community that cannot organize around its own interests. And while that is happening, while real journalism is being gutted block by block across this country, there are full production teams and studio audiences and archive folders of 17-year-old blog posts being deployed on primetime television. That is where the resources are flowing, not toward the 50 million people in news deserts, toward ambushes dressed up as interviews. News trust in the United States hit a record low in 2026. And watching that Joy Reid interview, you can feel exactly why. Because the people who watched it did not see journalism. They saw a format built to produce a villain. Joy Reid refused to be the villain. She walked in knowing what the set was built for and refused to perform the role it required. And for a lot of people watching, people who have sat across from a boss or a landlord or a system or the conversation designed to make them feel small, that refusal felt deeply personal because it was. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification. I'll see you in the next one.